The night I finally let the silence speak. I'd been talking over everything, filling up the air, drowning out the quiet with my noise and my despair. But something made me stop that night, close my mouth real tight. The night I finally let the silence speak, and brought light bells too. At first the quiet terrified me, made me wanna run, but I forced myself to stay there till the silence had begun, to say the things I needed, things I couldn't hear before. The night I finally let the silence speak, the night I finally let the silence speak, I heard what God had to say. All the words I'd been drowning out finally found their way. The night I finally let the silence speak, and truth came flooding in brimms. The silence told me I was loved, told me I was known, spoke of grace and mercy in a gentle, steady tone. Now I give the quiet space to say what it must say. The night I finally let the silence speak showed me the way. Silence has a voice when we stop our own. It speaks the words of heaven in a holy tone. The night I finally let the silence speak changed everything I knew. No more filling up the space with words that weren't true. The night I finally let the silence speak, now I listen more. Yeah, the night I finally let the silence speak, and open heaven's door. Now I give the silence room, let it have its say. The night I finally let the silence speak, and show me the way. God sat with me while the road went quiet, verse 1. The highway had been roaring, trucks and cars all day, but something happened at midnight, noise just went away. The road became so silent, like it held its breath. God sat with me while the road went quiet, nothing left. I thought I'd be afraid there in that sudden hush, but feeling him beside me in that silent rush made everything seem holy, made the quiet right. God sat with me while the road went quiet that night. God sat with me while the road nothing left to say. God sat with me while the road went quiet, and that was all I needed then. He said, son, I stop the traffic when I want to talk, silence all the chaos so we can take a walk. Now I listen for those moments when the road goes still. God sat with me while the road went quiet, His will. God can quiet highways, stop the world's loud sound when He wants communion on holy ground. God sat with me while the road went quiet in the midnight hour there. No cars, no noise, no rushing, just His presence in the air. God sat with me while the road went quiet, made the highway church. God sat with me while the road went quiet and ended my search. Now I wait for quiet roads, for moments without sound. God sat with me while the road went quiet and holy ground was found. I'd buried it years ago underneath the frozen ground. Thought if I covered it deep enough, it couldn't be found. But standing in that frosted dawn, with shovel in my hand, I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt. I understand. Each scoop of frozen earth revealed another memory there. Things I thought were dead and gone came rising through the air. The cold made digging harder, but I couldn't stop the task. I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt, removed the mask. I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt, where I thought it would stay. Brought it to the surface in the light of day. I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt and faced what I had done. God said, son, you can't move forward with your past still underground. Sometimes you have to dig it up before peace can be found. Now I'm grateful for that cold morning and the digging I had to do. I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt, started new. What we bury lives until we dig it out. The cold preserves our history, that's what dirt's about. I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt and gave it to the Lord. Let Him deal with every piece, every painful short. I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt. Now I'm walking light Yeah, I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt, and everything's alright. Now I don't bury nothing in the cold hard ground. I dug my past out of the cold morning dirt, and freedom I have found.
My legs gave out beneath me, halfway up that hill, and couldn't take another step, and couldn't bend my will. But right there at the place where I collapsed upon the ground, the cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore. I found it had been standing there forever, waiting for this day, when I'd finally reach my limit, when my strength would go away. Perfect placement for my falling, perfect spot for grace. The cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore, face to face. The cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore, at the ending of my strength, right where I fell down, and at the end of my rope's length. The cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore, and held me when I fell. Jesus said I knew exactly where you'd reach your breaking point. That's why I stationed my cross here at this very joint. Now I'm leaning on that cross, letting it hold my weight. The cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore, at the gate. Our breaking points are mapped out, where the cross will be. God positions mercy where we bend the knee. The cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore, like it knew I'd fall. Stationed at my weakness to answer mercy's call. The cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore. Now I'm resting here. Yeah, the cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore, and removed my fear. Now I know that every falling has a cross already there. The cross waited where I couldn't stand anymore, and showed me heaven's care.
I'd been battling for years, swinging at everything in sight, fighting shadows, fighting demons, fighting wrong and right. But I ran out of energy, couldn't throw one more punch. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended. Had a hunch I was slumped there in defeat, head hung low in shame. Thought I'd lost by giving up, accepting all the blame. But grace came walking through the wreckage, said the fight is done. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended, and I'd won. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended, in exhaustion and defeat. Right there in my surrender, where loss and mercy meet. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended and said, well done, my son. God said winning isn't fighting till you can't fight anymore. It's knowing when to lay down arms and walk through my door. Now I don't measure strength by how long I can stand and fight. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended, made it right. Sometimes victory looks like sitting in defeat. Grace redefines winning, where all surrender's complete. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended and called it victory. Not in endless fighting, but in finally being free. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended. Now I understand, yeah. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended and took me by the hand. Now I don't fight like I used to, know when to sit down. Grace found me sitting where the fight ended and gave me a crown.
I spoke my truth into the air, standing by the tracks, watched the words get picked up by the wind and not look back. They traveled down the railroad like a freight train heading home. The wind carried my confession down the line, not alone. Each syllable was a boxcar, each sentence was a train, carrying my burden, carrying my pain. The wind became the engine, pulling all my guilt away. The wind carried my confession down the line that day. The wind carried my confession down the line.
where truth must go. Took my heavy burden through the valley low. The wind carried my confession down the line, and I felt the weight release. God said, son, I use the wind to carry confessions far, to deliver them to heaven, no matter where you are. Now I speak my sins into the breeze and let them ride. The wind carried my confession down the line, nothing to hide. Wind moves confession along the tracks of grace, delivers to the Father in that holy place. The wind carried my confession down the line and brought mercy back on the same wind current, along the same old track. The wind carried my confession down the line. Now I'm standing free. Yeah, the wind carried my confession down the line, and it rescued me. Now I confess to the wind, let it carry what I say. The wind carried my confession down the line and took my guilt away. I heard God breathing in the space I feared was one. There was a gap in my life I'd been avoiding all my days, an empty space that terrified me in 1,000 ways. But when I finally faced it, stepped into that void, I heard God breathing in the space I feared. Overjoyed, His breath was steady, rhythmic, filling up the air, inhaling and exhaling, showing He was there. The very place I'd run from held His presence most of all. I heard God breathing in the space I feared, heard His call. I heard God breathing in the space I feared, in the emptiness I fled, right there in the void that filled me with such dread. I heard God breathing in the space I feared, and He was waiting all alone. He said, son, the spaces that you fear are where I live. That's where I do my greatest work, where I have most to give. Now I run toward the voids instead of running away. I heard God breathing in the space I feared that day. God inhabits empty spaces, voids that make us scared. His breath fills up the nothing and shows He's always there. I heard God breathing in the space I feared, like the breath of life itself, turning my great terror into spiritual wealth. I heard God breathing in the space I feared. Now I seek
spaces without an ounce of fear. I heard God breathing in the space I feared, and He's always near. There was a gap in my life I've been avoiding all my days, an empty space that terrified me in 1,000 ways. But when I finally faced it, stepped into that void, I heard God breathing in the space I feared, overjoyed. His breath was steady, rhythmic, filling up the air, inhaling and exhaling, showing He was there. The very place I'd run from held His presence most of all. I heard God breathing in the space I feared, heard His call. I heard God breathing in the space I feared, in the emptiness I fled, right there in the void that filled me with such dread. I heard God breathing in the space I feared, and He was waiting all along. He said, "Son, the spaces that you fear are where I live. That's where I do my greatest work, where I have most to give. Now I run toward the voids instead of running away." I heard God breathing in the space I feared that day. God inhabits empty spaces, voids that make us scared. His breath fills up the nothing and shows He's always there. I heard God breathing in the space I fear, like the breath of life itself, turning my great terror into spiritual wealth. I heard God breathing in the space I fear. Now I seek the void. Yeah, I heard God breathing in the space I feared, and I'm overjoyed. Now I enter empty spaces without an ounce of fear. I heard God breathing in the space I fear, and He's always near. I've been fighting with myself for 30 years or more, debating every instinct, questioning what's at my core. Something happened in the darkness, made me drop the fight. The night I stopped arguing with my own soul that night. My soul had been trying to tell me something all along, but I kept on interrupting, saying it was wrong. When I finally let it speak without me talking back,
The night I stopped arguing with my own soul, got on track. The night I stopped arguing with my own soul, I heard what it had to say. All the truth I'd been debating finally found its way. The night I stopped arguing with my own soul, and peace came rushing in. God said, son, your soul knows what I've put inside of you. Stop fighting with the truth, let it see you through. Now I listen to my soul without the argument. The night I stopped arguing with my own soul, heaven sent. Our souls know truth that our minds debate. Peace comes when we stop and let the soul relate. Night I stopped arguing with my own soul was the night I found my peace. No more internal warfare, just blessed relief. The night I stopped arguing with my own soul, now we're unified. Yeah, the night I stopped arguing with my own soul, and my soul's my guide. Now I listen to my soul, don't argue anymore. The night I stopped arguing with my own soul and opened heaven's door. The darkness had been following me, wouldn't let me go, clinging to my footsteps everywhere I'd go. I tried to shake it off, but it stayed right by my side. God met me where the shadows wouldn't leave, didn't hide. I thought he'd wait for daylight, wait for sun to shine, but he came into the darkness, walked into mine. Right there where the shadows pressed against my skin, God met me where the shadows wouldn't leave, pull me in. God met me where the shadows wouldn't leave, in the darkness that stayed, didn't wait for light, wasn't afraid. God met me where the shadows wouldn't leave, and he stood with me there. He said, son, I'm not afraid of shadows or of night. I'll meet you in your darkness and make everything right. Now I don't wait for shadows to leave before I pray. God met me where the shadows wouldn't leave that day. God in his darkness doesn't fear the shade, meets us in the shadows that refuse to fade. God met me where the shadows wouldn't leave, made the darkness home, showed me he's with stay.
I was gripping onto everything, holding way too tight. The silence wrapped around me wouldn't let me fight. It kept me in one place there, wouldn't let me move at all. The silence held me until I let go. Heard the call. I struggled against the quiet, tried to break its grip, but the more I fought the silence, the tighter was its grip. Finally I surrendered, opened up my hands. The silence held me until I let go. Understand, the silence held me until I let go. Kept me prisoner there till I released my burden and let God take my care. The silence held me until I let go, and then it set me free. God said, son, the silence is my way of making you still, of holding you in place until you bend unto my will. Now I thank the quiet for holding me so tight. The silence held me until I let go that night. Silence is a keeper, holds us till we yield. We can't move forward till we've been healed. The silence held me until I let go, like a holy cage. Kept me from my running till I turned the page. The silence held me until I let go. Now I'm walking free. Yeah, the silence held me until I let go, and it rescued me. Now I'm thankful for the silence that holds me in its grip. The silence held me until I let go, and completed the trip.